Hi, and welcome back to the Unconventionalists podcast. I'm your host, Mark Leruste, and this is the show about what it's really like to turn your message into movement. Now, before I begin with anything, let me start off by saying Happy New Year. At the time of recording this, it's the 8th of January, 2021, and I believe you've got up until about the first week-ish to congratulate and wish people a Happy New Year. So this is me to you, wishing you that 2021 is going to be everything that 2020 wasn't. And yet, which is interesting because today I want to talk to you about two main things. And stick with me and you're going to see how actually we can turn 2020 into potentially one of your best years yet. And I know it sounds crazy, but stick with me. Now, before we get into that, I wanted to generally give you a huge warm, heartfelt thank you for your support over the years on this podcast. So I first launched the Unconventionalists podcast back in 2015, I believe, summer of 2015. And we're now on season 15. We'll be releasing episode 144, I think 145, in the coming week. And I'll tell you a bit more about the guest towards the end of this kind of special edition. But the reason why I'm saying this is I'm eternally grateful. We've been nominated as a finalist for Best Interview category at the Podcasting for Business Awards 2021. And it's a huge honor just to be nominated, especially in that category. I take huge pride, but really I've got to give thanks back to you. And I got to give a huge thanks to all the guests who've been brave enough over the years to come and open their hearts and souls and just be real. And it feels a bit crazy. And so I want to segue into this in a second, but what I'll say is I've been getting a lot of messages from people asking me how they can support and help to help me win this award. So the category of Best Interview Award is actually a closed category. So it's a series of judges who are going to judge that, and we'll get the results, I think, on the 20th of January. I could be wrong. But up until the 11th of January 2021, you can vote for the, I think it's called the Audience Choice Award, which is basically the podcast that is voted by the most people. And you can go and do that. So many of you already have, and I so appreciate you for it. Thank you so much. But if you want to get involved, the link's going to be below in the show notes, and that'd be amazing. Like, why not bring home 2 awards if we can? That'd be so cool. Which brings me into something I did a bit differently this year. And a question that we often get around this time of the year is, what are your New Year's resolutions? Now, I have in the past done New Year's resolutions, and admittedly, most of them have failed. I haven't stuck to most of them. Like, I think 87% of people fall short of their New Year's resolutions come like February 1st. I probably think it's like January 12th. So instead, this year I did something a little bit different, which I've done over the years sporadically. Like, I'm not going to pretend and say I've been doing this every year, but it's to look back at the year and acknowledge what I'm grateful for. What are all the wins, all the highs that have happened over the year? Now, if you had to sit from memory and write them down, you could probably come up with a few things. Maybe you struggle to do that, but here's a technique that I've done and I've shared with clients and that I've shared on my newsletter. And if you're not part of my email list, please join the tribe. It's good fun. I send out an email every week-ish. And it's the following. So what you need to do is you probably just want to grab your phone. It's probably the easiest. And on your phone, you want to look through your diary from January the 1st to December 31st. Look at your diary, look at some of the events that you attended, some of the meetings you've had. Look at all the photos that you've taken the entire year. I personally look at my P&L in terms of the clients I've worked with, the income I've made. I look at some of the kind of emails that I've had over the year. And what I start doing is I start mapping out the events, sort of the things, little wins that have happened. And you'll be astonished at what you find. I was so surprised to find so many amazing things that happened in 2020. And it just reminded me of like that old saying where your attention goes, your energy flows. And it was so easy to think of 2020 as a total write-off. And it was hard and challenging. I'm not saying it wasn't. I don't want to belittle the experience of how tough it was. But the truth is, so many amazing things did happen. Like, I totally forgot that I was interviewed on a Skill Booster and part of their series. It's kind of a Netflix for companies in terms of education and training. And that was such a cool experience. And I forgot that. That was like a really silly thing to forget. And obviously being nominated in December 2020 for Best Interview Podcast at the Podcasting for Business Awards 2021 was like amazing. So do this simple exercise, write it down, and then let me know in the comments below, or let me know by sending me a DM or a message, or tag me in social media. Let me know some of your big wins. It's been so cool to see people of a community, some of the wins they've had in 2020, and actually how it's helped them reshape and reframe the entire year. Now, why did I want to talk to you also about how does this link into the nomination of the award? So instead of doing New Year's resolutions this year, I decided to do something a bit different. I started to think about what would be an intention, maybe a mantra, maybe a few words that could capture the essence of what I want for 2021. And I want to offer this exercise to you too. And effectively, I wrote down all the things that I aspire to be more and to do more, right? So things like being authentic, being real, being personal, having courage, brave, dare, being nicer to myself, and being less self-judgmental, and all these things. And I kind of wrote all this down, and then these three words came to me, and they came really crystal clear. It was be true, be brave, be kind. And those three words have been pivotal even for this first week in 2021, because these words mean something to me. They don't need to mean something to anybody else, but these are going to be words that I'm going to be carrying this year for me, my business. Be true, because it's about being true to myself, being true to my word, being honest with who I am and what I want, being transparent, personal, authentic, and real. All these things that I aspire, right? And I'm going to get one last point about this in a second. Be brave. It's having the courage to do all those things about being myself, standing for what I believe in, standing up for what I don't believe in, being brave enough to go after what I want to do, the goals, the missions, putting myself out there, dare to fail, not look perfect, all these things. And then be kind. Be kind has always been a core value of mine, and being kind to myself is going to be a new one this year. I really want to embrace that one. Be kind to myself. And look, kind doesn't mean being nice. I'm going to have to make really tough decisions this year, and I'm going to have to do it in a way that still feels kind, and kind can be tough. Those two can go together. So how does those exercises in this particular case link also to the nomination of the awards? Well, here's the thing, and maybe you can relate to this. In the past, I've tended to underplay how much I want something or how much I desire something, right? So again, in my words, be true, be brave, be kind, be true, right? I want to be true to what I desire, and I want to win this award. Like, I've never really given myself permission to desire or want something openly, because I've always thought that as long as I play it small, as long as I underplay, as long as I kind of like pretend like I don't really want something, then if it happens, great, bonus. If it doesn't, then it looked like and it feels like I didn't really care anyway. So it's a total self-protective mechanism. And I decided this year to give that up. And so I've openly talked about this. I've told my friends, I've told my community, I've told our tribe, like, I want to win this award. And it's not just because it's coming from a needy place of seeking external validation. It's because I'd love to. I'd love to win an award that recognizes the craft and the body of work that I've done over the last 5 years, going into our 6th year, of interviewing over 140 world-class guests and getting some truly emotional stories out. And if you've been following the show for a while, first of all, thank you. And if you're new, then welcome. But you'll know that we have some extraordinary guests, and these don't necessarily have to be guests that you've heard of. They could be someone you've never heard of, but they've brought some incredible stories to the table. And so I'm learning, and it's not easy. Like, I'm not saying I've got this figured out. I'm still struggling at times with fully owning that I want this, and that I can see myself winning, and that I deserve to win, which is a weird word for me to use. But effectively, what it boils down to is just to being open to saying, it's okay if I don't get it. It doesn't define me. It doesn't mean I'm worth it or not worth it, or enough or not enough. I would just love to win. So if you want to help out, here's what you can do. There's a term in leadership jargon called sourcing, and effectively parents might relate to this. But when you're watching a sport, be it football, American football, rugby, whatever, it's easy to look at the team and start shouting, right? And saying things about how useless they are or how incompetent they're, all these things. That's like negative projection, right? Sourcing is when you see someone you love or someone you care, and they're about to do something incredibly brave or incredibly dangerous. Maybe it's a sport, maybe it's a kid who's about to go and do a gymnastic routine, or you're seeing an event or something that's going to move you, and you're sitting there and you're secretly hoping, praying, whatever you want to call it, some positive stuff that's going to happen. That's called sourcing. Sourcing is when you want something good to happen to someone else or somebody else or a group or whatever. So I'd love for you to source for me if that feels right, and cross your fingers. And obviously I'll share the news and I'll pop some bubbly with all of you when we get the great news, and we're going to win this. We're going to take this home. And that's what I want to share with you. And I want to leave you with this on this particular part around, what do you desire that you don't let your heart connect to, and that you don't allow yourself to fully own? Like, what's something in 2020 that you really want and that you want to go after? Start with that. Try and do that. That might be helpful. And before I go, I want to talk to you about the next guest coming up on the show. I had the pleasure and honor, really, of sitting down and interviewing Tucker Max. Some of you might have heard of him. Some of you might have never heard of him. Whatever your stance is on what you know or don't know about Tucker, this is probably one of the most raw interviews I've ever done. And it's not because of the guest. It's actually because of me. I'll dive a bit more into this into the next episode and give you a bit more of a backstory then. But just know that it feels incredibly, vulnerable, actually, to put this episode out there. We talked about a lot of inner child wounds and trauma. We talked about what gets in the way of us expressing ourselves creatively and putting our work out into the world, especially around writing a book, because some of you might know I'm writing my second book, which has been kicking my ass. And I'm stuck in the trenches, and before you know it, the interviewer became the interviewee. The tables and microphones turned, and Tucker started asking me questions and kind of working me through and helping me and coaching me through the process. And it some deep stuff came out, and I asked him a question no one's ever asked him in 20 years, and he said that was a first, which is quite cool. So you can go and check that out. So without further ado, I wanted to wish you happy New Year. Hope you're well. Hope you're safe. Hope you're healthy. Hope you're finding time for yourself to connect and to go and put yourself out there and do some great work. I'm really looking forward to this year. We've got some great plans coming up. I'll tell you a bit more about that in the future. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed this, just leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and maybe even share it with a friend that might need to hear this. If you've got someone that you want to help out for this year that might need to have a bit of a positive reframing of 2020, this exercise might be helpful for them. Cool. Go forth, be well, and I'll see you next time.